We're going to answer your questions on today's mailbag that was filmed during our Thursday live show. So come hang out with us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Quick reminder, click the share button down below. Help us grow this channel by sending this video to more Falcons fans. Archangel is up first, though. Any updates on the Tyler Allgeier talk, and who could want Allgeier, and what could we get for Allgeier? Who could want him? A lot of teams could want him, right? He's a 1,000-yard rusher in his rookie season. He's proven to be one of the best RB2s, and I'd say a starting running back for a lot of teams. So I could see a lot of teams having interest. I don't think that interest would happen until after the draft, just because it's such a loaded running back draft class. Why wouldn't a team just wait until the draft and see if they can get a younger, cheaper player than Allgeier? So I would say put a pin in this. This gives me vibes of going into day 3 of the NFL draft trade. Like when DeAndre Swift was dealt from the Lions to the Eagles, the Lions drafted a running back, and they're like, who wants one? And the Eagles said, we'll take him. So that's a timeline for when an Allgeier trade could happen. Anthony with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Anthony. Do you keep Kyle Pitts or trade him away for picks? Man, this is the most polarizing topic. Listen, I've been very clear about my stance on this, which is I think it's in the team's best interest to trade him if they don't plan to utilize him. And based on the way they used him at the end of last season, I don't see why he warrants a $10+ million cap hit for this year and a starting role, which by the end of the year, guys, I'm not here to, don't shoot the messenger. He was playing less than 50% of snaps. He did not seem to have a role in this offense. Now, maybe that changes with Penix, and maybe he wasn't a fit with Cousins, but I remember serving and drinking, was it Jonestown, whatever it was in, Guyana, whatever, serving the Kool-Aid of Kyle Pitts and Kirk Cousins having awesome chemistry going right now during training camp. If the Falcons plan to utilize him, then keep him. But if they don't, then what's the point? I'll be very upset if the season gets here and Charlie Warner is out-snapping him in the red zone. It's like, well, good thing we kept him. So we've seen trades happen mid-draft before. I think that could be one that happens. ESPN floated out that idea. Marquise Brown, A.J. Brown, they got dealt a few years ago mid-draft. I could see that happening for a team that really wants a tight end, and they miss out on one. Anthony, thank you so much for your super chat. Vincent Cuts, I see a world where Kirk will start for the Falcons in 2025, giving him one more shot as a starting QB in the NFL. This requires, let's just be honest, a Mykel Penix injury. Unless Penix just utterly shits the bed, he's going to be the starter. They're not going to bench him halfway through his real first year as a starter. So I will add, I just feel like it's destiny, though. If Cousins is on the team to start 2025, I could see a couple things happening. One, I wouldn't be shocked if they're like, hey, Kirk, stay at home. And then they try and see if they can get a trade done mid-season for a team that has an injured quarterback. But I could also see a scenario where Kirk comes in to replace an injured Penix, and he balls out, and we don't know what to do with our lives. Lav S. Which players, if they fall to 15, are must-grabs, even if the Falcons plan to trade down? I think Atlanta, just to wrap up the second part of this year, might have interest in trading back from 15. I don't think they're going to have many suitors wanting to move up to 15. But fall to 15, here's my top 10 right now. For factoring positional need, they're not going to go with an offensive lineman, I would speculate. Maybe, I guess, if they're ready to find a new blindside tackle to replace Caleb McGarry. Like Armand Membu from Mizzou, he played right tackle for the Tigers. That could be a nice replacement for McGarry after this year, but I think that could wait till next year possibly. So fall to 15, Will Johnson from Michigan. I'm super high on him. Jalen Walker as well from Georgia. And then Mike Green. Those would be the 3 players I would highlight. Lav S. Oh, sorry, same one. So those are my 3 players right there, Lav. Jeremy, do you think that if they can't trade Cousins and ultimately release him, should Arthur Blank fire Terry Fontenot? No, because I think Blank is in on the plan of we're gonna dig in and we're gonna bet that someone needs him. And I wouldn't be shocked now that I kind of think about it. that they dragged this into the season. And they are like, all right, no one wants him. Well, we'll see when the season gets underway and someone's starter gets injured. And then his value just skyrockets. That's way down the line, but I think Arthur Blank is in on this plan. I don't think they blindsided him with, hey, we spent $10 million of your dollars on him, and then we cut him. And had we cut him in March, you could have saved $10 million. Jeremy, I really appreciate your question, though. My burner, PD, do you think Kirk Cousins deserves all the money he has made? Yes. He got it because he earned it, right? He didn't drug a GM and, put in an extra zero at the end. I know what you're basically getting at is, for how good he has been, does that reflect $380 million in earnings? If you do it by wins per million, probably not. But a team needed a quarterback, and he was a free agent at a very good time. A little bit lucky, sure, but he showed enough when he was under contract to warrant the next one he got. Austin, if the Falcons draft an edge round 1 for the first time in forever, would you rather have Mike Green, Mykel Williams, James Pearce, or someone else? I'd probably put them in that order. Mike Green, Mykel Williams, James Pearce. There's two knocks with Green, right? It's the competition he faced, which I think DeMarcus Ware was a pretty decent player. Someone could fact check me in the NFL, and he played at Troy. And Khalil Mack played at Buffalo. I think Mike Green's fear of level of competition is somewhat unfounded. 2, the sexual assault allegations. That's on the Falcons to do their homework and learn if they are comfortable with him or not. Mykel Williams, he kind of played through an ankle injury last year, which led to not as big of a productive year. But man, when you're on that Georgia defense, it's tough to, stand out a little bit because look around. How can you when Malachi Stark's going to be a first rounder? Jalen Walker's going to be a first rounder. You're going to be a first rounder. And that's just this year's draft. And that feels like a low number for UGA. And then Pearce, I think I have 2 concerns with Pearce. 1, a bit of a temper, evidently, in the locker room and not the best example for the youngins to follow. 2, he wins with speed. I'd rather have a guy win with power than speed. Speed's good. I like speed. Not the drug, but the trick. But I'd rather have power because speed, I think, can be solved for by better offensive tackles in the NFL. Power, there's not a whole lot you can say or do about it if he wants to drive you back to the quarterback. We're going to look at the other questions in just a second, but first things first, check out the Falcons draft hat. I think it's a pretty cool draft hat across the board this year in the NFL. If you're on the same page, I invite you to go to chatsports.com/ATL draft. I put the link for you all in the comments and description of today's video, so check them out today if you have not already. Aiden Stackhouse, keep up the great work, PD. We appreciate everything you guys are doing on the channel. Rise up. Aiden, thank you so much. Really appreciate your kind words. Thank you. Trey, do you believe David Onyemata will be traded or cut this season? No, I think he's here to stay. I think Atlanta made a decision between Onyemata and Jarrett, and they are proceeding with the one they kept. I think Onyemata last year, if you blind resume it all, played better than Jarrett. When you take away the blind resume and you factor in the emotional impact of moving on from Jarrett, who's been on this team for a decade, or was on this team for a decade, it makes it a lot more difficult. But I believe Onyemata is going to be here, and he's going to continue to serve as this team's nose tackle. Cade, which player drafted last year, other than Penix, will take the biggest step forward? Well, you got Braylon. Let's go in order of when they were drafted, right? You got Rook in round 2, Braylon Trice in round 3, Brandon Dorless in round 4. You had Casey Washington, Zion Logue, Jace McClellan. I think that's everyone. Zion Logue is off the team. He's on the Bills, I think. Jace McClellan, I think, could have a bigger role in year 3 to replace Tyler Allgeier, but I was never really crazy about that pick to begin with because he didn't bring anything new, I felt like, to the running back room. So that leaves you with Casey Washington, who had a nice preseason. And I remember when Penix came in against the Broncos, he had a great ball to Casey Washington. I think Washington got concussed on the play, but still a nice pass. And then you got Dorless, who I will kind of say no. And that leaves 2 options, Rook and Trice. Rook battled through an ankle injury much of last season. He was a healthy scratch for the first third of the year, but he's going to have a much bigger opportunity now with Grady Jarrett out of the picture. So I'll go with Rook as Trice kind of gets himself back up to 100% off the ACL. Damon, if something really big doesn't happen before September, then this offseason has been a total failure. Raheem Morris would say no because he was more or less asked this question, not verbatim, but point blank about, hey, the defense was bad last year and you haven't done much. I think the draft is I think the draft needs to be factored in more when evaluating Atlanta's offseason, and we haven't gotten to that point yet. But in general, I don't disagree that you had a pass rush that ranked 31st last year, and your solution was to sign a 30-plus-year-old player coming off 8.5 sack season. Not bad, but I would have liked a little bit more. The tough thing was, and no one wants to hear this, there hasn't been a great opportunity for them to upgrade their pass rush. I don't think they missed out on a lot of free agents that were bargain deals that the Falcons stuck their nose up to. I don't hate the fact that they didn't give Josh Sweat $21 million because he's one of the most inconsistent players at that position. So I wish I could say, man, what a mistake that was to pass on that player. I don't think there was that guy in the offseason this year for them at pass rusher. Damon, thank you so much for your super chat. Big Falcon, predict Drake London's stat line for the 2025 season with Penix at the helm. Last year, I think I predicted Drake London gets 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. Around that stat line. And what did he end up finishing with? Drake London stats, real time, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. So I was on the money last year with it. This year, I'll say, I'm going to go like 105 grabs, 1,200 yards, and 10 touchdowns. I'll go with that. Jason Greenway, do you think we address center maybe in the 4th? Rise up CLNS Sunny San Diego. I think the center address has been made. It's Ryan Neusel. He's going to take over from Drew Dahlman. He played in that spot for over almost half the season last year with the ankle injury Dahlman suffered. And I don't think the Falcons have enough draft capital to really make center a priority for them this year. I think they got to roll the dice on Neusel. They can try it for the 7th round, but that's not what you're asking. In the 4th round, I don't think so. It's a weak center class. They would be reaching on someone who everyone else would say, oh, that's a 6th round guy. But you're taking him in round 4 because you're not in round 6. Unless like one of the 2 Georgia interior offensive linemen fall to round 4, I don't think so. Tony Wright. Jacksonville gets Atlanta's 1st round pick. Atlanta gets Travon Walker, Jacksonville 2nd. This gives Jacksonville 2 first rounders, 5 and 15. So what you're doing here is you're evaluating Travon Walker between a 36 and a 15. Let me just do the quick math here as to what the trade value chart says. Because I'll explain more in a second here. But you're saying that Travon Walker is essentially worth 510. You're saying Travon Walker is worth the 39th overall pick in the trade value chart. The trade value chart, by the way, it assigns a number value to every single pick in the draft. So if you want to trade up to the Falcons at 15, it costs you 1,050 draft points. So you got to combine the picks you have to get to that number for it to be a fair trade. So you take the 1,050 at 15 and you subtract what Jacksonville is at 36, which is 540, and you get around the Bears at pick 39. I don't believe the Jags value Travon Walker at the 39th pick. I think they'd want more. So Jacksonville does get 2 first rounders, but they're out of the round 2, and I think that's not going to be enough for him. I still like the idea, though, Tony. Taylor Vaughn. Saw NFL draft analysts say Browns trade for Atlanta's 1st round pick in exchange for a second, 3rd, and 4th. Is this a good deal in your opinion? So the Browns acquire pick number 15, and Atlanta gets pick 33. That's the 1st pick in round number 2, the 3rd pick in round number 3, and the 1st pick in round number 4. Well, I've got it right in front of me. Let's look at the trade value chart. Like that's what this chart's for. Jimmy Johnson made it, and it's for moments like this. Is this a fair deal? So pick number 15 is worth $10.50. So if you take the Browns' second, plus their third, plus their fourth, the trade value chart says $3.99. $3.99. Oh, sorry. 1 second. One moment. Real time. $9.01. $9.01 is the 18th pick. That's not very far off from 15. So, is this a good deal? I think it's a fair deal. It's not far off from what the Vikings gave up to get into round 1 again last year with the Texans pre-draft. Ultimately, the Browns trade. Yeah. Ultimately, I think the Browns could do this, I guess. And the Falcons would get a lot of picks out of it. So I could see Atlanta playing ball with this. Plus, kind of a working theory I have, I think pick 33 might be better than pick 32. The reason being is pick 33 is 15 hours after pick 32. So you get all that time to work the phones and trade that pick and get a lot more for it than if you're at pick 32, you're kind of in a hurry, right? The only difference between the two is the fifth-year option, which is valuable, but 15 hours might be more valuable to work out a better trade than if you were at pick 32. Archangel, last question. Who are some sleepers in the first and second round? Okay, good question, Archangel. I'll go with offense and defense for one. Offense, Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. He's got just great size altogether, great tester, and the production was there for a lackluster Iowa State offense. So I like Jaden Higgins, the Cyclone receiver. Defense, I will go with, I don't want to give another Iowa State player, but there's Darion Porter, who's like a 6'3" corner, and that's pretty rare. I'm going to go with Omar Norman Lott. Can't spit that out. Went to my own school. Omar Norman Lott. He's a Tennessee defensive tackle. He's one of the best pass rushing DTs we've seen in recent draft history. Now, the reason why he's not a first rounder, despite being one of the better pass rusher DTs, is he's a little bit on the smaller side, and he does not play all 3 downs, play a big enough snap percentage to warrant an early investment in him. If you're picking a guy in round 1, you want that guy in the field, right? He's more of a rotational at best and pass rush specialist. So when he's on the field and it's a passing situation, he's going to create hell in the middle of that defensive line. So I'd go with Jaden Higgins, Iowa State receiver, and Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee defensive tackle. To wrap up today's episode, if you're still hanging out with me right now, drop an ATL for me in the comment section. I love to see the end of the video, crew, so scroll on down and drop an ATL.